All right, we just got big news from Zos yesterday. We have now seen all of the class masteries coming in update 50. We have a ton of them here. They showed them off on the live stream. Honestly, like some of the coolest stuff I've seen since I first started playing ESO. Like absolutely incredible ideas here. They really fit in, each of the classes masteries really fit in with the identity of who that class is, and not only fits in but like really reinforces that identity. So one thing they wanted to make sure that we knew as they were going through them is that tooltips were all works in progress. The flavor text on them is just a lot of them are placeholders right now, and the numbers are not final. They said even some of these have already changed from the versions they were showing us. So just keep that in mind as we're going through it. Like, these are not the final numbers. They are the early in the works numbers, and all the text is not finalized either. But the general idea of like what these passives are doing, that part we can really read into. All of that said, I will still be giving feedback based on what we're seeing here and what the numbers say, because I think the earlier we can get in feedback, the better we can have these arrive at the PTS, which means the better they will arrive once they actually go live as well. So with all that out of the way, let's just go ahead and jump into the classes. So we'll start with Dragonknight. Their first one here is Booming Voice. Activating rank 2 of the Storm Voice now also grants 5 health, magicka, and stamina recovery for every ultimate spent for 10 seconds. So you cast something and spend 200 ult, you'll get 1,000 recovery for 10 seconds. If you cast something at 500 ult, you'll get 2,500 for 10 seconds. This goes along with the Storm Voice, which also gives you back your resources when you cast an ultimate. Seems, I mean, it's pretty good. The overall idea for these class masteries is you can't subclass and take these. Like you cannot take any of these class masteries if you have even a single subclassing line. So you have to be a pure class, and B, these are supposed to like bridge that gap between subclassing and pure classing, right? So the idea is these are supposed to be really powerful because subclassing is really powerful. So as we're looking at these, the idea is, would this be enough to make me want to forego subclassing and actually stay with my base class? And the other thing to keep in mind is there are 5 of each of these for each class, but you can only take 2. So you have to choose the 2 that you want. So ultimately, can I pick 2 out of here that's going to offset what I could gain in subclassing? So that's kind of like where we're working from. So this is good. I mean, it's a lot of extra resource recovery. Ultimately, though, like, I don't see this as being something that is profound enough where I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to drop subclassing to get that. It's solid. Probably would need some tweaks to be in that category of like, yes, this is an amazing boost. I want to forego subclassing to take this. The next one is Immovable Mountain. Each second you remain bracing, you increase the amount of damage you block by 6% up to 5 times. So up to 30% increased block mitigation. And then blocking damage has a 20% chance to restore 500 stamina. This effect can occur once every block cost. So decent little bit of stand back while you're blocking. Also, way more block mitigation if you've been holding block for a while. So really, really strong defensive passive here. On top, they already have 10% extra block mitigation in their kit anyways. So now another 30% on top of that. It's really huge. And again, you can pick 2 of these only. So keep that in mind as we go through all of them. Next, we have Unstoppable Force. Improves your landslide passive to increase the potency of your damage done, healing done, and damage shield strength by 1% per stack. So this stacks up to 10 times. The fastest you can stack it up if you use your Shatter Spike armor as well is like 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, you normally with this passive will stack up to 10% damage done. So now you, on top of that 10% damage done, you get another 10% damage done, 10% healing done, and 10% damage shield strength. Again, it's okay, but doesn't seem like, oh, I'm gonna forgo subclassing to take that. Like I think it's gonna need some more oomph before it lands in that category. Next we have Rousing Roar. This one is insanely good and definitely fits that like bill of I will have someone in my group come as a full Dragonknight so that we can have this. Like this is a perfect example. Activating rank 2 of the Storm Voice, which is the same passive we talked about earlier, grants you and group members within 28 meters of you major berserk, major heroism, and major protection for 1 second per 10 ultimate spent, increasing damage done and reducing damage taken by 10% and granting 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds while in combat. So at 200 ult, that would be 20 seconds for the buffs. At 500 ult, that would be 50 seconds for the buffs. So really, really strong group buffs here when you cast an ultimate. So really any role could make use of this because it's just when you cast an ult. But something like this is like, okay, as a raid team, we want somebody on the team as a pure Dragonknight to bring this, right? And that's like the perfect example of like the kind of stuff I think we should be looking for here to incentivize having base classes matter in the game and not just subclassing everything out. So this one's great. I really like this passive a lot. Recursive Flame, this one is also pretty dang strong, it looks like. Again, all the tooltips are work in progress, subject to change, but we're going to work with what they've given us so far. When your Dragonknight damage over time effects end, you apply Recursive Flame to the target, dealing 1904 flame damage over 12 seconds. This effect stacks up to 12 times and increases in damage by 25% per stack. So it's a nice 12-second dot. It starts off kind of low at just a 1904 tooltip there over 12 seconds, but it stacks up quite a bit higher. So at 12 stacks, it would be base tooltip would be 7616 over 12 seconds. Be a very strong dot at that point. So yeah, this is a really cool reason to stay as a base DK. Something like this, very appealing. The timer on it at 12 seconds is nice because your dots in the kit are mostly all lower than that. Your Searing Claw and Disintegrating Dragonfire are both 10-second dots. Your Talons are 5 seconds. You do have your Shatter Spike Mantle armor that's a 20-second dot, but you have enough dots that are lower than this dots timer where over the course of a fight, this buff is just going to stack up and up and up. And it kind of incentivizes maybe using Talons as well, which has kind of fallen off as kind of a meh dot in the kit. But since that has such a short timer on it, it will stack this up a lot quicker. So really cool idea. I really think this fits in well with the DK and like who the DK is. Really all of these fit in well with the feeling of the DK. So I love the designs. I think there's obviously some here that feel much stronger than others, and I think some of the lower end ones probably need some secondary effects, make them a little more appealing to, you know, not go into subclassing, take advantage of. All right, next up we have the Necromancer. We have Cycle of Death. Upgrades rank 2 of corpse consumption to mark the closest enemy to you with Death's Touch for 6 seconds, allowing you to use a corpse consuming ability on them. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds. So this is just when you consume a corpse then you get this new effect. So really interesting idea for playstyle, like altering the kind of playstyle that you do with the Necromancer. So now when you consume a corpse, a creature near that corpse, you can also use them as a corpse and like tether directly to that enemy. Really cool concept. I think it sounds really fun. I don't know if that in and of itself though is like powerful enough to drop subclassing. I love the idea of it, but I almost feel like there needs to be some kind of like also stat boost on there, like also gain, 300 weapon and spell damage, just something additional there because like, man, again, not having subclassing is such a big loss. So I love the playstyle that this can open up, but I don't think it's enough on. So like the example here with the Corpse Burster set, when you consume a corpse, it explodes. So now if there's a corpse, you can consume it, make it explode, and then immediately do it again because the closest enemy is going to also be explodable as a corpse. So just really cool thing to open up playstyles. It's an awesome idea for altering that. I think it's really fun. I like really across the board with all the classes, but especially here on this one, they've really reinforced a lot of who these classes are with these passives. All right, next up we have Lord of the Cycle. This one is insane. Upgrades rank 2 of reusable parts to grant Lord of the Cycle for 25 seconds, increasing your damage done by 1% for every 1% health you have more than your target. Damage bonus caps at 50% or 25% while Battle Spirit's active. So essentially, when your Blast Bones dies, which happens right away in a fight, you get a long buff, and as long as you're just doing a normal rotation, that buff will stay up. And it is a crazy amount of extra damage done. So at the enemy being at 75% health, you'll have a 25% damage done bonus against them. Once they hit 50% health and then all the way down to 0, you'll have 50% more damage done to that enemy. It's yeah, that's a lot. So like that's what I'm saying, like looking at this compared to like Cycle of Death, it's like Cycle of Death is a really cool gameplay changer, but this is 50% damage done. So it's like it's kind of a no-brainer, but at the same time, like in order to make me not want a subclass, we need really large damage bonus, like 50% combined with some of the other passives we can take might be a bit overkill. We'll see. I'd love to, like, once this hits the PTS, like actually get on and test and see like where do these passives make these base classes end up, right? Because I mean this is huge, but like it might seem huge, but then what if it ends up like, okay, it's just now actually on par with subclassing after this is added in, right? So definitely going to take some testing to see where it lands. But the nice thing is this, it's a cool idea. All you need to do is like tweak the numbers to get it to land in the right spot. So this is another really good one. What do we have next? Nothing Wasted. This also works with the Corpse Consumption passive. Upgrades rank 2 of Corpse Consumption to also grant a stack of Nothing Wasted for 20 seconds, which increases your max health by 2% and weapon and spell damage by 2% per stack, up to 10 times. Stacks decay one at a time instead of all at once. Now, I don't know if this one, I'm going to assume this doesn't follow the 16-second cooldown that the ult generation does on the passive. I'm going to believe that anytime you use a corpse, it's going to trigger this. That would be my guess anyway. So at 5 stacks, you'd have 10% extra health, 10% extra weapon and spell damage. At 10 stacks, you'd have 20% extra health and 20% extra weapon and spell damage. So if you can keep that keep those stacks up high, you can, I mean, 20% extra weapon and spell damage and health is pretty huge. So that combined with 50% more damage done to enemies at 50% health and lower is a crazy boost to damage for Necros. And again, like, with those being so good, where does that leave something like Cycle of Death, which adds in a really cool new playstyle, but like, it can't compete with these. So I wouldn't say these need to be heavily nerfed. I'd like to see where they bring us to on the PTS, but I think something like this is going to need an additional effect on it to make it desirable in comparison to some of these others. All right, so then we have Pound of Flesh. When death knocks at the door, demanding... I'm not going to read all the flavor text. They said that's probably going to change. When you take damage, you have a 1% chance to heal for 1600 health and restore 5% of your missing stamina up to once per second. This chance increases by 1% for every missing health percent you have, and the healing is based off your max health. It looks like it is 10% of your max health that they have it at currently. Most likely used base character stats for these with 16k health. It's a nice 1600 number there, so that's what I'm going to assume. So probably 10% of your max health. So if you have, 45k health as a tank, this is a 4500 heal. Very low chance to trigger at high health, but then as you go down further, that chance increases. So 75% health remaining, you have a 26% chance to trigger this. Down at 25% health remaining, you'd have a 76% chance to trigger this with each hit of damage against you. So really helps you, like, as you get low, to like constantly swing back up. So I think the idea is cool. Again, it's going to need to be something that is appealing enough for people to forego subclassing, which maybe for some people this is. I don't know. It's definitely a nice bit of survival added in with it. And then finally for Necro, we have At the Precipice. While you're in combat, healing a target below 50% health relinquishes them from death's clutches and allows you to use a corpse-consuming ability against them within 10 seconds, up to once every second. So this lets you target your allies with corpse abilities, which is also a very cool playstyle. Same problem I had with the first passive. Awesome in theory, but like, is this really enough compared to some of the other options, or compared to going subclassing? The trigger condition is also a little bit finicky. Like, they have to get below 50% health before this will trigger. So I don't know. I definitely think this could use a little love as well. It's a really cool idea though. Like, being able to use your allies as corpses for tethers and stuff, like that's awesome. But I think they'll need to add a little juice to this for it to be super appealing. All right, next we have critical motivation for the Nightblade. This one's pretty cool. So it upgrades rank 2 of your hemorrhage. You have a chance to generate 2 ultimate. So this is when you deal crit damage. Anytime you deal crit damage, you have a chance to generate 2 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 0.3 seconds, and the chance is based off your weapon critical. So for example, at 50% crit chance, you'd have a 50% chance to get 2 ult when you deal crit damage. At 100% crit chance, you'd have a 100% chance to get 2 ult on crit. So if you're at 100% crit chance, and you are dealing a bunch of damage to enemies, like, so crit damage is just popping like crazy, you could get like 6 ult a second with this at 100% crit chance. Most setups are not going to be at 100% crit chance, so you have to start like dividing it based on the chance. But it's a lot of extra ultimate for sure. Like, It is kind of disproportionate towards damage dealers here, because for one, your crit chance is going to be way higher as a damage dealer, and for two, you're going to be dealing way more ticks of damage that can trigger this. They could potentially deal crit damage. So for support, I don't really see this probably adding in a ton of extra ults. You get a little bit more from it, but you know, as a support, doesn't seem like dropping 2 more subclassing lines is going to be worth it for this. But for a damage dealer, it's a pretty interesting option to really build ult very fast. However, it has some other really good ones to compete with, since you can only choose 2. Like this one. Detect weakness. Increases your weapon and spell damage by up to 1500 based on your target's missing health. Reduces your damage taken by up to 15% based on your attacker's missing health. So 66% enemy health, you'll have 500 weapon and spell damage and 5% reduced damage taken. At 33% enemy health, you'll have 1000 weapon and spell damage, 10% reduced damage taken. And then right when the enemy's almost dead, you'll have 1500 weapon and spell damage against them. They'll have 15% reduced damage, and you'll have 15% reduced damage taken against them. So they'll deal less damage to you. You'll deal more damage to them based on their health. So this one's super strong. An average in just a normal fight of 750 weapon and spell damage gained. Obviously, with Nightblades having strong executes, having more in that lower end of the fight makes that more valuable than just the 750 weapon and spell damage might seem. So overall, a very, very strong passive. It's really good, and it does help a lot to offset subclassing. And it's why I think passives like these are going to need like a little bit of something extra on them to compete with this. Evasive Trance. This one's really cool too. Activating a Nightblade ability while bracing causes you to dodge attacks for 0.3 seconds. So bracing is just holding block. So while you're holding block, if you hit a Nightblade ability for 0.3 seconds, you can dodge an attack on you. So it's like a parry window, essentially, where you just can't be hit. Now, one thing I'm curious about with this is, will this allow you to dodge attacks that are normally not dodgeable, like whirling blades? Is this like a straight miss me dodge, or is this just like, this lets you avoid things that could normally just be dodge? You could, you know, do a roll dodge and miss. So that, I have to dig in and find the answer to that. I'm guessing it's the latter. Like, you still can't dodge things that can't be dodged. But I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work exactly. It seems interesting. You know, at the end of the day, you can also just roll dodge and avoid stuff. So this saves you a bunch of stam from not having to do that. I don't know. It seems interesting, but I think we'll have to dig in further to see how it works exactly. All right, next passive is Share the Spoils. Upgrades rank 2 of transfer to grant the closest group member 500 magic and stamina, and doubles the ultimate you gain when it activates. So every 4 seconds you hit a siphoning ability, you'll get 4 ultimate. So that's pretty good. I mean, it definitely increases that passive. And then you also give a group member 500 magic and stamina once every 4 seconds. Just, I don't know, like, it feels pretty meh compared to other stuff here. I think this one's going to need a lot more love to be appealing enough to drop subclassing for it. And then finally, this is probably the coolest Nightblade passive. Increases your critical damage and healing by 25%. Increases your maximum critical damage and healing by 35%. So huge damage boost, 25% more crit damage and healing. And then you're no longer capped at 125% crit damage, you're capped at 160% crit damage. So like this right here, getting to 160% crit damage plus, you know, your 1500 up to 1500 weapon and spell damage based on the target's missing health, those combined is, you know, it's going to be a huge damage boost for Nightblades. Is it enough to compete with subclassing? Like, that's what we're going to have to test and see once this hits the PTS. We'll find out, but I mean, this is awesome. This is a really strong damage boost for pure Nightblades. You know, and a lot of people will be like, well, Nightblades, do Nightblades really need all that extra crit? But like, are there many people like running around on pure Nightblades? Like, they kind of do. Like, they need a lot to compete with what subclassing can. So stuff like this is really going to help a lot with it. All right, next up we have Sorcerer. Conservation of energy. Upgrades rank 2 of blood magic to work with any ability with a cost, and restores 1000 magicka and stamina when it activates. So this normally is when you cast a dark magic ability with a cost, you heal if you're not at full health. And then if you are at full health, then you get a 10% boost to your magicka or stamina, whichever's higher, for 10 seconds. So as long as you're casting a dark magic ability once every 10 seconds and you're at full health, then you should be able to keep that extra 10% max mag or stam. So now this makes it much easier to keep up that passive, because any ability that has any cost to it will trigger this. And not only do you get that passive from any ability, but you also get 1000 magicka and stamina whenever you cast any skill. Essentially, this just makes sustain infinite. So if you want to play a pure Sorc, this is definitely an appealing reason to, you know, not so much for PvE, but for PvP. You can just go full damage, not worry about sustain at all, and just have this constantly restoring 1000 magicka and stamina for you. So pretty strong passive. Again, not super appealing for PvE, but I could definitely see this one being appealing for PvP. Next, we have Font of Power. Upgrades rank 2 of Exploitation to work with any Sorcerer ability and increases your weapon and spell damage by 9% for 10 seconds. So you get a base extra 9% weapon and spell damage whenever you cast a dark magic ability. Lasts for 10 seconds. So you do have to cast a dark magic ability at least once every 10 seconds to keep this buff up. And then the weapon and spell damage increases by 1% for every 1500 max magicka or stamina you have, whichever is higher. So this ends up a really, really large increase. So if you have 30k max mag or stam, that's a 29% increased weapon and spell damage. You have 40k max resource, so you're really building into it. That's 35.6% increased weapon and spell damage. Absolutely huge numbers there on that. So this one seems really good. Easy enough to keep up. You just have to cast a dark magic ability once every 10 seconds for it. But yeah, this one will be really strong, and it's really going to help the base Sorc have a lot of extra power. This one will also Implosion. When you deal damage, you have a 1% chance for every 1% missing health the target has to deal 314 shock damage once every 0.2 seconds. Chance is divided by 1 plus every permanent pet you have active. So you don't have any pets active, the chance is what it is. If you have 1 pet active, the chance is divided by 2. If you have 2 pets active, the chance is divided by 3. So a little more incentive to not run pets here with this one, but you still get some of the damage from it if you do have pets out. So for example, an enemy with 67% health remaining, this would have a 33% chance to trigger on any damage you deal. So already, like, even at that health point, it's going to be triggering quite a lot. That does drop down to 11% chance if you have 2 pets. Again, it's any damage you deal though, so it still will be triggering fairly regularly at that point, even with 2 pets out. At 34% health remaining on the enemy, this is a 66% chance to trigger on any damage you deal. Practically all the time it's going off. 22% chance with 2 pets. Then at 1% health remaining, this is nearly 100% chance to trigger. Every tick of every bit of damage you're doing is triggering this. Or a 33% chance if you have 2 pets out, which is still pretty high chance when you have a lot of damage ticks. The tooltip on it is pretty low. It's only 314, but I think that is designed that way because it's going to be ticking so often that you kind of have to have a low tooltip because it's going to trigger a lot, especially towards the end of the fight. It does have a 0.2 second cooldown, so the most it can hit in 1 second is 5 times. But if you're getting 314 shock damage 5 times in a second, that's gonna do a lot of extra damage. So again, tooltips are works in progress. So the cooldowns, the percent chances, the actual tooltip for the damage, all this stuff can change. But really cool idea for Sorcs based on what we have so far. And for those that don't know, the Sorcs used to have an implosion passive. It didn't work quite like this, but it was essentially an execute passive that could randomly, it had a chance to proc if you dealt shock or physical damage below a certain threshold. So this is kind of trying to bring back that idea, but they said in a more healthy way. So will definitely be a lot of extra damage the lower the health gets on your target. And then we have efficient defense. While beginning to use a sorcerer ability or an ability with a cast time, you gain a damage shield for 0.3 seconds that can absorb 8,000 health. This effect is based on your max health. Again, I'm assuming that the stats here are with the character with 16k health, because that's perfectly divided as 50% of that health pool. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going to assume here. So with those assumptions, if you have 30k health, this will be a 15k shield. If you have 45k health, this will be a 22.5k shield. Pretty massive. And this is anytime you use a Sorc ability, any Sorc ability, or any other ability that's not a Sorc ability that has a cast time. So the way I'm reading it, and I could be wrong here, but if it's a Sorc ability with or without a cast time, or if it's a non-Sorc ability with a cast time, then you gain a damage shield for 0.3 seconds every time you hit it. So you're just constantly, for a very small bit, getting these shields. It doesn't have a cooldown, but your skills have a 1 second GCD, so you essentially can't get it up more than 0.3 seconds for every second in combat. So this is really cool, especially if you're timing your abilities, as stuff is hitting you, maybe you're casting a shield right as you're getting hit, and so you not only get the shield that you're casting, but this other shield on top of it. Really, really cool design. And again, it really feels like the devs know the strengths of each of the classes, and they know the play styles, and they're doubling down on them and really leaning into them hard. And I love to see stuff like that. It just really reinforces the class identity there. Then next up we have Parallel Protection. This is another shield passive. Casting a damage shield on yourself or an ally grants an additional shield for 3 seconds that absorbs up to 4,000 damage. This effect scales off the highest of your max health or max magicka. The shield is capped at 25% of the target's max health. So a target with 30k health would get a 7,500 shield. A target with 45k health would get an 11k shield. And this just happens anytime you cast a shield on an enemy, or sorry, on an ally or yourself. So not only do you get the shield that you're putting on yourself, but you get this other moderately sized shield on top of it. It's not huge like the last one with the very, very short timer on it, but you get a 3 second shield that's you know, this looks like a decent sized shield. So really going all in on Sorks is like the shielding class here. Like at least the more powerful shield, right? It seems cool. Again, I don't know. Is this worth dropping subclassing to give your allies really big shields? Maybe, maybe not, but really cool concepts for all of these here. Sorks, I love every one of them. I feel like it really just fits into who the Sorcerer is. Templars also have some really cool stuff, so let's get into them. Illuminary of Bravery. Upgrades rank 2 of Illuminate to also grant Lustrous Bravery for the duration, which grants 300 weapon and spell damage to allies and doubles for you. So Illuminate is the passive casting Dawn's Wrath. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability grants minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds. So not only do you give your group minor sorcery when you hit a Dawn's Wrath ability, but now you give them another 300 weapon and spell damage on top of that. And you get 600 weapon and spell damage for you. So really cool passive here. Very strong, both for group support and for personal damage. Next is In Radiance Judgment. This is probably, this is one of my favorites out of the whole thing. When rank 2 of Burning Light deals damage, your Templar abilities gain 2,000 damage done for 3.1 seconds. So Burning Light just procs every 3 seconds. As long as you're dealing damage, you can, well, sorry, the stacks last for 3 seconds. After hitting 4 stacks, you deal the damage, but you can build stacks once every half second. So this will, the Burning Light, just as long as you're dealing enough damage, Burning Light triggers all the time. What I'm trying to get at, like, you don't have to worry about this passive not going off. As long as you're dealing damage, it's just gonna pop on cooldown, essentially. So now when that pops, it will also trigger an extra 2,000 damage done on your Templar abilities. So what that means is, think of like the Maelstrom staff that adds 1,500 damage to each tick of your Maelstrom blockade, or sorry, your blockade of fire, or whatever blockade you're running there. That's 1,500 damage done added on each tick there, and it increases the damage of that dot by quite a lot, right? This is going to add 2,000 damage to all of your Templar abilities, which is crazy high. Like, and it works especially well for stuff that ticks more than once a second. So like your jabs are going to hit crazy hard now. Your beam is going to hit harder. All of your dots are going to be worth running, because like 2,000 extra damage on every tick of each of your dots is amazing. Like, this is such a cool passive to really juice up the Templar skills. Jabs builds will be phenomenal with this. I'm super excited to play around with this one. It's gonna feel good to actually like want to run all of my Templar dots, because a lot of them are just like like the Spear Shards is like Vent Bane is like Solar Barrage is decent because it like gives you a damage done buff to your class skill, so it's like not really that great of a dot, but now it'll be a good dot too. Like, this is just huge. It's such a good passive. I can't wait for this one, and the last one combined with it. So not only that, but you get 600 more weapon and spell damage for yourself as well. Templars are going to be doing well with this. Then we have Hold the Line. While Sacred Ground is active, you gain a damage shield for 6 seconds, up to once every 6 seconds. The shield absorbs up to 3,200 damage and provides 300 health, magic, and stamina recovery while active. If the shield breaks, you gain 10 ultimate. So Sacred Ground is when you're standing in your cleansing ritual, your rune focus, or you have Rite of Passage. then you get these buffs that are on the Sacred Ground passive that's already in your kit. So it's saying while that's active, you gain a damage shield for 6 seconds. So essentially every 6 seconds, as long as you have one of these skills going, you're just getting a damage shield. Like it's just popping automatically without you having to press anything every 6 seconds. It's not a huge damage shield, 3,200 as the base, but you also get 300 health mag and stam recovery also, just at all times essentially. Which, I mean, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then if the shield does break, you get 10 ultimate. So 10 ultimate every 6 seconds would be the fastest you could generate that, which is very strong for ulti-gen as well. Again, the support stuff compared to the damage dealer stuff, like I feel like the damage dealer stuff, it's easy to compete with subclassing, right? You just put in big numbers, right? Just put in weapon and spell damage, put in big damage, and then like your class can compete with subclassing. Like, because that's really, from a damage perspective, that's what you're going for. For support stuff, it's a lot more tricky because like the big thing that subclassing offers is the utility of like taking the 3 different lines and bringing so much to your group with those 3 lines. My worry with some of these designs so far is like this, there have been a few group support passives put in, but most of them are like that are aimed towards the support roles, like this one here. It's just like a little bit of personal benefit. Like the 10 ultimate could translate into more support for your group, but I feel like a lot of these don't come close to matching what you can get in subclassing. So again, I think some of these are going to need to be brought up a fair bit to make that trade-off seem worth it, to lose out on the subclassing. Missionary of Light. Sacred Ground is now applied while you're in your own Nova and Spear Shards. So not only will your Cleansing Ritual, Rune Focus, or Rite of Passage give you Sacred Ground, now your Nova and your Spear Shards do. Your Radial Sweep when that's active, or when your Solar Barrage is active. So you'll pretty much always be in your Sacred Ground with this passive, no matter what, because it extends it to so many other skills. While Sacred Ground is active, you heal for 1279 health every second. If you're at full health after being healed from this effect while in combat, you also gain 2 ultimate. So if you're at full health, you're just getting 2 ult a second. Pretty cool. Like that's a pretty nice amount of ulti-gen, and it does allow you to gain that Sacred Ground with other skills. One thing, like, I like that idea that your Sacred Ground is applied with other skills, but at the same time, you can only take this passive if you are a full Templar anyway. I feel like you're getting your Sacred Ground is not really that hard if you're a full Templar, because you're going to have Restoring Light. Like, you're going to have that skill line. So it's like this passive seems like it would be more interesting if you could use it with subclassing, because like then I might not have Restoring Light, but I have like Dawn's Wrath, for example, and my Solar Barrage keeps up my Sacred Ground, even though I don't have that line. I'm not saying that you should be able to use these lines with subclassing. I guess what I'm trying to say is this seems like it would make more sense used in that sort of way, because it's not as appealing when you already have access to the skills in that line anyways. But the secondary effects, getting heals every second, pretty much just all the time, no matter what. Getting 2 ult a second if you're at full health when those heals go off. I mean, it's pretty good. Just I don't see people dropping subclassing to take this though. And then Sacred Anchor, another Sacred Ground enhancement. So this one now activates and refreshes itself while bracing. So now you don't even need to cast any of these skills or have any of this going. It's just automatic on you when you're holding block. Increases the amount of damage you can block by 20% while stationary. So not as high as the DK's. DK's got like 30% more block mitigation, but theirs has to stack up for 5 seconds the longer they hold block, while this one's just automatic if you're standing still. So a lot of extra block mitigation here, and nice to be able to benefit from the Sacred Ground even if you're not in one of your abilities. So if you happen to be like on the move, you could like stop as a big hit's coming in, take the block to get the extra block mitigation while stationary, and then start moving again. Pretty cool. Again, just not enough oomph, I think, to overcome subclassing. But I really like the damage dealer stuff here in the Templar. I think they did awesome with that. The other stuff I think probably needs a little bit of work. We'll see. We have a ways till the PTS still, and then once the PTS comes out, we'll have weeks of iteration there. So a lot of time to really get these in a good spot. All right, next up is the Warden, and then after that, we'll have the Arcanist. So for the Warden, we have Hypothermia. Applying chill to an enemy also applies Major Brittle for 2 seconds, increasing their critical damage taken by 20%. This is pretty awesome. Applying chill is rather easy to do with the Warden, even in an AoE. So essentially, have somebody come as a pure Warden in the group, and everyone has 20% more crit damage. Pretty great passive. Definitely support oriented, but if you want to take it for your personal damage too, you could definitely do that. Like if you're solo or something. So this to me feels like, okay, this lines up like the DK passive. That's the group buff as well. Feels like reasons to bring a full Warden, right? This is a reason like, okay, someone might consider dropping subclassing and bring in a Warden to bring this. Next is One with Winter. Upgrades Bond with Nature to also activate off Winter's Embrace abilities, activating to grant 15% weapon and spell damage for 10 seconds if you're at full health after. So now not only do your Animal Companion skills heal you for 15-30 health, but also your Winter's Embrace abilities will also, every time you cast those will heal you. And you get 15% weapon and spell damage as a 10-second buff. So as long as you're casting either an Animal Companion or Winter's Embrace ability, every 10 seconds, you have a 15% weapon and spell damage buff at all times. Super strong passive, and a nice little bit of extra healing. I like these two both a lot, Hypothermia and One with Winter. Next is Wild Adaptation. Gain 333 weapon and spell damage for each status effect on your target, up to a maximum of 1665. So with 2 status effects, that would be 666 weapon and spell damage against the target. With up to 5 status effects, that'd be 1665 weapon and spell damage. So really, really strong. It caps at 5 status effects. 5 is a little bit tricky to get by yourself. In a group scenario though, that shouldn't be too hard. Should be up pretty much all the time. A lot of extra weapon and spell damage though, very strong for the Wardens. And then they have Thick Hide. This one's pretty simple. It reduces your damage taken by 10% against targets with at least 1 status effect. If they have anything on them, chilled, burning, concussed, whatever, poisoned, at least 1 status effect, then you take 10% less damage. It's nice. Again, I keep going back to it though. Is this worth giving up to subclassing line? It's hard to make that trade-off, I think. But 10% less damage taken is pretty nice. Then we have Nature's Bounty. Upgrades rank 2 of Nature's Gift to also restore 500 magicka or stamina to your ally, whichever resource pool is lower. This one kind of reminds me of the Nightblade passive that gives some resources to, I think that one says your closest ally. This one is like when you heal an ally with the green balance ability, it triggers and restores resources to you. So now you'll get those resources, but your ally will also get even more of those resources. It has a 1 second cooldown, and it's single target. So I don't know. It's not terrible, but just it doesn't feel like it has enough oomph. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna drop subclassing so I can get Nature's Bounty in my kit. It doesn't feel that way the way some of these others do. Like the first 3 here, Hypothermia, one with Winter, and Wild Adaptation, these all feel like they could be in that category of like worth it to drop subclassing for. And then we have Arcanist, which I love what they did here. It feels like they really leaned into what the Arcanist is and went all in with it. These are going to be fun. So Abyssal Pact, activating an Arcanist ability, Arcanist Ultimate, immediately generates maximum crux and grants you 666 weapon and spell damage for 15 seconds. Seems really good. First glance, now that we've read all the other damage passives, it kind of actually falls a little short. Like, it's cool that you get your max crux when you hit your ult, but like generally, like the way you open up a fight, you're going to have to flail anyways, and then you'll get the free crux from your scholarship. So you're kind of really not gaining a whole lot. Like, you get like essentially one free GCD is how I'm reading this in your opening. Maybe later on in the fight, it gives you a couple of free GCDs to not generate the crux, which is nice for sure. And the 666 weapon and spell damage for 15 seconds is good, but you see other classes getting that and even more for the whole fight, not for 15 seconds after using an ult. So it's not a bad passive. In comparison to the others, for the other classes though, it feels a little bit lacking. However, this one's such a cool playstyle changer. This is probably top 3 overall in all of the passives for me of any class. Upgrades rank 2 of Implacable Outcome to generate maximum crux up to once every 15 seconds. So this passive is when you consume crux, you get some ultimate. So now when you consume crux, you go to max crux. So essentially, there are a couple of cool things here. So you build up your crux, you beam, that triggers this passive, and you fill up your crux again. So as you're beaming, your crux are back to full. So what do you do when you're done with that beam? Beam again. So back-to-back beams. Looks super fun. This is such a cool playstyle change. It does have a 15-second cooldown on it, so you can't just do back-to-back beams over and over. And then the other thing you could do is build your crux with rune blades, and instead of having flail, you could have tentacular dread. So build your crux with rune blades, tentacular dread, and then beam after that. So your tentacular dread will drain all your crux, but this passive will now put them all right back, and then you could do a full crux beam right after with the extra damage from tentacular dread. So kind of opens up that alternate playstyle there as well. Really interesting stuff. I love what they did with this passive. And really in general, across the board with all these, it really shakes things up and opens up so many new playstyles. And they're playstyles that you can choose, because you can only pick 2 of the 5 passives. So it's like, if I want to lean into this playstyle, I can take this passive and play this way instead. It's super fun. I love what they did here. Like I said, this is probably top 3 out of all the passives for me. I think this sounds really fun. This one, Manifest Destiny, upgrades rank 2 of Fated Fortune to also increase your damage done by 33% for the duration. So this is whenever you generate or consume crux, increase your damage, your crit damage and crit healing by 12% for 7. So this one you have to either be generating crux or spending it at least once every 7 seconds to trigger it. So now, as you're doing that, for that 7-second period, you're also getting 33% increased damage done. Quite large. I saw some people like saying, "Oh, you're giving Arcanist 33% damage done," but like, this is base Arcanist. You got to remember, base Arcanist is losing 2 subclassing lines to gain damage with. So Herald of the Tome is the only damage line for the Arcanist. So going as a base Arcanist, your damage is dropping by a whole lot. So being able to make up a lot of that is going to be huge with a passive like this. So not only can you beam back to back, but as you're doing so, you're dealing a lot more damage. Really cool design here, I think, so far on all of these. This one I was quite a bit less impressed with. Upgrades Fate Woven Armor to also grant 300 Magicka and Stamina when you take damage, increasing by 100 per crux you have active. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds you can get somewhere between 300 and 600 Magicka and Stamina back, just taking damage. It's decent. I mean, it's a decent bit of extra sustain, but I don't know. Just doesn't feel nearly as impactful as some of these other options. I think they need to probably add something quite significant on top of this to make this one appealing. And then finally we have Fleshborn Fate. While in combat, when you heal or overheal a total of 75,000 health, you generate a crux. This one seems really cool too for group play, for healing, as you know, like with your healing beam, that spins all your crux. Well, as you're healing a bunch of targets with that, you're going to easily hit that 75k health mark again and build all your crux back up and just be able to like heal beam through whatever phase you need to. Like if you need to, I mean, there probably, let's be real, there aren't too many phases where it's necessary, but it's cool if you're trying to pocket heal somebody as an option to like really just crank out like crazy heals with this. Or, I mean, just in general, just as you're healing, your crux is constantly filling up and you're able to take advantage of the extra crux as a heal. So I really like the design of this one too. Like all of these in the Arcanist kit, except for Mind Over Matter, I really liked the designs of them overall. They, you know, maybe the numbers could use some tweaking one way or another, but this one I feel like, you know, having some extra sustain is not really that appealing of an option to go with, but all the others really like what they did. So yeah, that's every class. We got 5 for each class. You can only choose 2. You have to be a pure class. You can't have any subclassing lines to grab these. Again, this will come in update 50. We don't have the PTS date for this yet. We don't have the launch date for this yet. Most likely PTS will be in April, if I had to guess, and launch will be like June-ish, early June, late May maybe, probably early June. If I had to guess, it would be early June for update 50. But yeah, we don't know the details so far. We just have this sneak peek that Zos gave us from their live stream. So I went through and put together all these graphics to share them with you guys. Again, they said all of this is a work in progress, so don't take it all as like this is what's happening. This is just early feedback to give them so we can land in a good spot for the PTS. And honestly, just to get hyped for all this, because it's really cool. These are some of the coolest changes I've seen in the whole time I played ESO. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you on the next one.